Hello, everybody, and welcome again to I have to check. This is the fifth episode of the Theology Monke podcast. I never thought we would make it this far. I thought we were done after one. I thought we were done after two. I thought we were done after three. I thought we were done after four. I thought we were done after five. I think this will be the last one, but never say never. Again, thank you to God, the All Powerful, for making this one possible. Today we will be discussing Episcopal collegiality. I'm joined as always, except this time, not by a panel of experts, just one expert, Julian Valdez, our resident Clash Royale demon and Philly fanatic. Welcome to the show, Julian.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about Episcopal collegiality today.
Of course. I am too. I think, that makes two of us, Julian. So, to begin, let's define Episcopal collegiality. What is this? Episcopal collegiality is the shared responsibility and authority of the world's bishops in communion with the Pope for the universal church. So this includes, synods, and how popes should how bishops should be advising the Pope on church matters, and how, essentially the Pope isn't just the only person driving the church. Which leads me to my first question for you, Julian. How does collegiality balance or challenge the idea of papal primacy?
I think the unity and diversity that collegiality brings among the bishops really unites them underneath the Pope. So, yes, it does kind of separate the bishops into their own category away from the Pope. I think them all being together and representing the church all as one, even with all these differing viewpoints from all around the world. I think that it's a good representation of the Catholic Church and its members. And I think it doesn't make the Pope this single leader of the church, but rather part of this membership that is the ones closest to God in the Catholic Church.
Right. I completely agree. I feel like, just because we're giving the bishops maybe more say in the church, or at least encouraging them to express their opinions, I don't think it's taking away from the Pope, because the Pope is still the head of the church, and all the bishops will still look up to him. One could say, the Pope is the head of the church, or the Pope is the mouth of the church, and the bishops of the body. I've heard people say, the Pope is the Adam's apple of the church, which, I don't really understand where they're coming from there. But, again, all of this is to say, this doesn't take away from the Pope's power. The Pope is still the head of the church. So this leads into my next question for you, Julian. As you know, part of Episcopal collegiality was the creation of synods, where bishops will advise to the Pope. So my question to you is, what do you see is the significance of these synods, and why do you think it was made such a big deal in Vatican II?
Well, I think first to talk about them, I think we should first define them. So the Synod of Bishops is sort of this permanent structure for the bishops to advise the Pope and serve as this one body to help unify and represent the church when it comes to the Pope and these higher matters. So I think that these synods are key to making this theme of unity and diversity possible within the bishops of the Catholic Church, because it almost serves as a house of representatives or Congress here in the U.S. These leaders are all part of this one group, and they all sort of contribute to the way things operate in the Catholic Church. I know St. Francis pushed for a theme of synodality, which is which is practical deepening of collegiality and emphasizing this dialogue and this listening that comes with this unity and diversity that the bishops coming together sort of represent. So I think that these synods are really textbook, and they're a great way to bring together these bishops and these ideas from all around the world and represent their people.
I agree, and it goes back to the idea, which was really sort of the driving factor of Vatican II, which is tradition versus change. And this idea of synodality really goes to the fact that the church should not be solely tradition, it should be adjusting to the modern world and changing things according to the needs of its constituents and the needs of its members. Um, and so I think synodality really does a great job of sort of allowing for the church to have change without necessarily having to call a council, which is like sort of like only happens once in a century and is like a really huge event. It's a good way of enacting change without having to do this such a big thing, especially because bishops are at least a little bit more in tune with the needs of their own people because they're from like a region than the Pope would be.
So that kind of makes me think of the first question that you asked, where uh, this these synods don't take away from the Pope's power within the church. The bishops are serving as these advisors, but at the end of the day, the Pope is still the person who makes the decision. And I think that the synods, they don't take away from the Pope's power either. But I feel like they do also, bridge this gap between Pope and people very effectively without taking away from either side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way of yeah, as you said, keeping papal power, but allowing the church to be a little bit more in tune with the needs of people across the world. So building off of that, how do you see? Do you think the synods are limited in any way? Do you think that they should maybe have more power, or do you think that the Pope maybe has too much centralized power, or that synods should increase their power and take maybe some away from the Pope? What are your thoughts?
It's a good question. I think that the synods, I feel like it's a good concept, but when you really think about the synods, I feel like they could have more power because what they are is they're sort of like an advising council, as we established on your last question. I think that if you have a pope that doesn't agree with these bishops, which I'm sure would be very rare, but the pope could just decide to ignore these bishops. And I think that's something that shouldn't be able to happen. Like, I feel like maybe these synods should be allowed to like cast a vote on something, or something like that. I feel like they should be more than just like an advising council, but also help in actually making the decisions.
So what would you propose to fix that? Would you do you want to make it almost like you want to give the synods like almost legislative power? Obviously, it's not like a law, um, but like, what do you think? What do you think a solution to this is, if there is one?
I feel like if there is a solution, I think something somewhat legislative would honestly not be a bad idea. Um, like if a majority of like these bishops agree on something and are advising to the Pope about it, but the Pope doesn't agree, then a vote of some sort should be held, and these bishops should be able to get through to the church what their people want without being blocked by the Pope because of this papal superiority within the church. So I think that if push would come to shove, then I think a vote of some sort should happen, but it doesn't need to be like an every time thing.
So you're almost suggesting giving the synods veto power over the Pope.
Maybe we'll see how that would work if
How
that would ever happen.
how do you think that plays in with papal infallibility? If the Pope is infallible, like what do you think about vetoes?
I think that well, that's a great question. I think vetoes, it should be something clear and obvious. Like if the Pope is blocking something that is like clearly wrong, then I'm not sure. Like, I feel like a vote should definitely be held. Like, if it's something like a humanitarian crisis and the Pope is just for some reason choosing not to get involved, then I feel like that's something you can veto. But then again, that's like a very odd situation. So maybe there is no solution to this synod idea.
Yeah, it's it's interesting to ponder, but it's tough to exactly specify one thing that you would like to change about it, because it is, we don't want the church to turn into like a congress, right? That's not what the church is. That's not what the church is meant to be. But at the same time, we do want bishops to have influence in the church, and so I do think personally that the synods do a great job of that, even if they don't have like power per se. As long as I think if you have as long as you have a pope that's working in good faith with the bishops, then I think it should work. And certainly the last two popes, well, certainly Pope Francis was working in good faith, as he called the synod on synodality, which is just about how we want, just like emphasizing these synods and listening to the bishops. Pope Francis certainly did that well. Remains to be seen about Pope Leo. He's still very fresh, very new. But I think as long as you have a pope who's working in good faith, then I think it works very well. So obviously, I believe that these synods do a good job of striking a balance between giving the pope power and giving the bishops power. But how do you see the role of the layperson in all of this? Do you think the layperson should have more of a say, or do you think that bishops can speak to the needs of their constituents?
I think that's been a developing thing among recent popes, trying to get this shared responsibility among the laity and the clergy as in partnership with the bishops. I think that the laity should maybe have a bigger role within these synods, because at the end of the day, they are like the people that are being represented. So again, I don't know how to make this, how to solve this without making it sound like a government, but I feel like the laity should have some say.
Maybe like almost like a town hall type thing where they come and like express their thoughts.
Yeah, like before their bishop goes to Rome to have to participate in the synod, all the people come and sit with him and tell him their thoughts on the church right now, so he can take their ideas with them to Rome.
I think that's a great idea.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. And I think that just about wraps it up for us. We're running out of time here. Thank you very much, Julian, for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me. It was truly an honor. Very blessed.
Of course, this was riveting stuff. And again, thank you, dear listener, for tuning in to this latest episode. We hope that you come back next time. If there is a next time, there might not be. The trimester is about to end. Once again, if this is the last time you ever hear from me, just know that it has truly been an honor for me to do this podcast for the last 4 years of my life. I'm tearing up. I'm tearing up right now, just thinking about it. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to do this podcast. Signing off forever, Bobby Fellingham. Peace.